She had just $3 for her birthday and thought no one cared until a single dad and his son showed up and changed her life forever. Rain tapped softly on the window as Maya opened her eyes that morning. She lay still for a moment, listening to the sound and feeling the cool air coming through a small crack in the glass. It was her birthday. She turned her head toward the small calendar taped to the wall beside her bed and smiled faintly. 10 years old today? She waited a few seconds, hoping to hear her mother's footsteps or a cheerful happy birthday. Sweetheart, but the apartment was quiet except for the hum of the old refrigerator in the kitchen. Her room was tiny, with peeling wallpaper and a single poster of butterflies she had drawn herself. Her wheelchair stood beside the bed, its right armrest wrapped in pink tape where the cushion had torn. Maya moved slowly, pulling herself up with her arms. Her legs hadn't moved since the accident 2 years ago. At first, she used to cry every morning when she tried to stand and couldn't. Now, she had learned to just breathe deeply and carry on. Her mother. Lydia came out of the small bathroom in her waitress uniform, tying her apron. Her face looked tired, her eyes half closed from another night with barely any sleep. "Morning, baby," she said softly, bending down to kiss Maya's forehead. "Happy birthday." Her voice was warm but rushed. Maya smiled up at her. "Thanks, Mom." She looked at her mother's hands. They were dry and cracked from washing dishes at the diner. Lydia reached into her purse and pulled out a small envelope. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," she said, pressing it into Maya's hand. "I couldn't get you much this year, but I wanted you to have something." Maya opened it and saw 3 $1 bills, a little wrinkled but neatly folded. Her smile wobbled, but she tried to keep it steady. "Thank you, Mom," she whispered. She didn't want her mother to feel bad. Lydia hugged her tightly, holding her face for a moment before standing up. "I'll try to come home early tonight, okay? We'll have something nice for dinner." But they both knew she wouldn't be home early. The diner was short-staffed. Lydia always stayed late to make enough money for rent. After she left, the apartment felt too big and too quiet. Maya rolled her wheelchair to the window and watched the world outside. The street below was full of life kids running, a dog barking, someone shouting about a game. She watched a group of children from the building next door chasing each other with balloons, their laughter floating up toward her. For a moment, she imagined herself down there with them, running, shouting, feeling the wind against her face. Then she looked down at her still legs and sighed. Her stomach growled. She wheeled herself to the small kitchen, where a few slices of bread sat on the counter. She toasted one, spread a thin layer of jam, and cut it into small squares. It wasn't much, but she pretended it was a birthday breakfast. She took out a pencil and a piece of paper from the table drawer. On it, she drew a small cupcake with 1 candle. Then she wrote, "Happy birthday, Maya," in big letters. Under it, she added, "Maybe next year will be better." She taped the paper to the fridge and smiled. At least now the kitchen looked a little festive. The hours passed slowly. She watched cartoons on the small television, drew pictures of flowers, and talked to her pet fish, a little orange one named Sunny. When the clock hit 5, the sound of children laughing outside drew her attention again. The same group from before now had party hats on, and a big cake sat on a picnic table in the courtyard. Maya's heart tightened as she watched them blow out candles and cheer. She looked at her $3 on the table. Maybe she could buy something sweet for herself, something small, like a cupcake or chocolate bar. She tucked the money into her pocket and carefully maneuvered her wheelchair toward the door. It was raining lightly, but she didn't mind. She loved the smell of rain, how it made everything fresh and clean. The elevator in the building had been broken for months, so she had to wait for a neighbor to help her down the stairs. Mrs. Patel from the 2nd floor saw her and came over with a kind smile. "Out for a little birthday treat, Maya?" she asked. Maya nodded shyly. Mrs. Patel helped her get to the street, holding an umbrella over her head. The small corner store was a few blocks away. Maya's hands grew tired from pushing the wheels, but she kept going. Inside, the shop smelled of sugar and old cardboard. She rolled to the candy aisle and looked around. There were chocolate bars, small lollipops, and a little display of cupcakes by the counter. A pink one with white frosting caught her eye. It was just the right size. She pulled out her money and counted it again. $3. The cupcake cost $2.75. That left her with a quarter. The cashier, a young man, glanced at her impatiently as she handed him the money. "You want a bag?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, thank you." She held the cupcake carefully in her lap, smiling. It wasn't much, but it was hers. When she rolled back outside, the rain had stopped, but puddles covered the sidewalk. The evening light was soft, glowing through the clouds. Maya started her way home, humming quietly. As she reached the corner, her front wheel got stuck in a small hole filled with muddy water. She pushed harder, but the wheel wouldn't move. She tried again, and the cupcake slipped from her lap, falling right into the puddle. For a moment, she just stared at it. Her throat tightened. All day she had tried to stay cheerful, to make it a good birthday no matter what, but now she felt the tears she had been holding back rise up. She bent forward, trying to grab the cupcake, but her arms weren't long enough. Then she heard a voice behind her. "Hey, let me help you." She turned and saw a tall man wearing a grease-stained jacket and holding a small bag of groceries. Beside him stood a young boy, maybe 8 years old, with curious eyes. The man gently lifted the wheelchair out of the hole and picked up the cupcake, wiping off the box as best he could. "There you go," he said kindly. "Sorry about that little mess." Maya smiled weakly. "Thank you." The boy looked at her and asked, "Is that your birthday cupcake?" She nodded. "Happy birthday," he said brightly. The man smiled at his son's enthusiasm. "You live nearby?" he asked Maya. She pointed toward her building at the end of the block. "Just there," he nodded. "Let's make sure you get home safely. These sidewalks are a mess." As they walked beside her, Maya felt something she hadn't felt all day, a little spark of happiness, of warmth. The man talked kindly, asking about her school and what she liked to draw. The boy told her about his pet turtle and how slow it was, making her laugh. When they reached her building, the man helped her to the door. "You'll be okay from here?" he asked. She nodded again, smiling more confidently now. "Thank you for helping me," he smiled back. "Anytime." Then he and his son walked away, talking softly. Maya watched them until they turned the corner. She didn't know their names, but something about them made her heart feel lighter as she rolled back into the apartment. She placed the slightly squashed cupcake on the table and lit a match. She held it to the candle, watching the small flame flicker. Closing her eyes, she made a wish not for toys or money, but for something simple. She wished that maybe, someday, someone would care enough to make her birthday special again. She didn't know it yet, but her wish was already on its way to coming true. Ethan wiped the oil from his hands with an old rag and sighed. Another long day at his small repair shop, and still not enough customers to pay all the bills. The shop smelled of grease and metal, the broken car parts piled in one corner, in a single flickering light above his workbench. He looked at the clock. It was almost 3 in the afternoon. He should pick up his son Lucas from school soon. Ethan tossed the rag onto the counter and grabbed his jacket. Outside, the air was cool and the sky was cloudy. The small town where he lived always felt a little gray, but it was home. As he drove his old pickup truck to Lucas's school, his mind wandered. It had been 3 years since his wife Sarah passed away. Some days the pain still hit him hard, especially when Lucas asked about her. He tried to be both father and mother, but some nights, when the house was quiet, he felt the heavy weight of loneliness. Lucas was waiting at the gate, waving as soon as he saw the truck. His backpack bounced on his shoulders as he ran over. "Dad, can we stop by the store? I need to buy something for Emma's birthday tomorrow," he said excitedly. Ethan smiled, happy to see his son's cheerful face. "Sure, buddy. We'll stop at the corner store." They drove a few blocks until they reached the small shop near the park. It was the kind of place everyone in the neighborhood visited: old shelves, a squeaky door, and the smell of fresh bread. Ethan parked the truck, and they went inside. Lucas ran straight to the toy section, looking through a small rack of colorful keychains and dolls. Ethan followed slowly, enjoying the moment. Then he noticed a small girl in a wheelchair by the candy aisle. She was carefully counting coins in her lap, her hands trembling slightly. Her clothes were clean but worn, and her hair was tied neatly in 2 small braids. Ethan looked closer as she couldn't have been more than 10. She picked up a pink cupcake with white frosting and looked at the price tag, her face full of worry. Ethan could see her lips moving as she counted softly. The cashier behind the counter was watching impatiently, tapping the counter with his fingers. Finally, she nodded to herself and rolled up to the register. "I'll take this one, please," she said in a quiet voice. The man rang it up. "That'll be $2.75. She handed him 3 crumpled dollar bills. He gave her back a quarter without a smile. Ethan noticed the way she looked at the cupcake like it was something precious. She held it close to her chest as she turned to leave. Lucas tugged on Ethan's sleeve, whispering, "Dad, is she okay?" Ethan nodded slowly. "I think so, buddy." But his eyes stayed on her as she pushed her wheelchair out into the light. Rain outside, something about the scene hit him deep inside. He remembered the first year after Sarah's death, when Lucas had asked, "Will we ever have birthdays again?" He remembered trying to bake a cake that ended up burned, and how Lucas had smiled anyway, saying, "It's still the best one because you tried." That same mix of sadness and hope was written all over the little girl's face. Lucas picked out a small stuffed bear and brought it to his father. "Can we get this one? Emma likes pink," he said. Ethan nodded, paying for it, but his thoughts were far away. He looked through the shop's window and saw the girl struggling to push her wheelchair across the sidewalk puddles. He couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to do something. When they stepped outside, Ethan saw her again, still moving slowly down the block. He hesitated for a moment, then said quietly, "Come on, Lucas, let's walk this way." Lucas frowned. "Aren't we going home?" Ethan smiled a little. "In a bit, I just want to make sure that girl gets home safe. It's raining, and those sidewalks are tricky." Lucas didn't question it. He had grown up watching his dad help strangers changing flat tires for free, carrying groceries for old neighbors. Ethan didn't talk about kindness much, but he lived it every day. They followed from a short distance. The girl's wheelchair wheels splashed through small puddles. She stopped at a corner and looked both ways before crossing, holding the cupcake carefully on her lap. A car honked nearby, startling her. She almost dropped the box but caught it just in time. Ethan took a step forward to help but held back. He didn't want to scare her. Then, as she reached the next block, one of the wheels got stuck in a crack on the pavement. She leaned forward trying to move it, but it wouldn't budge. Ethan didn't think twice. He jogged over, calling gently, "Hey there, need a hand?" The girl looked up, startled at first, then nodded shyly. Ethan crouched down, lifted the wheel slightly, and freed it from the crack. "There you go," he said kindly. "These sidewalks are tricky after rain." She smiled faintly. "Thank you." Lucas stood beside her, curious. "Hi, I'm Lucas. What's your name?" "Maya," she said softly. "Cool name." Lucas grinned. "That cupcake looks yummy." "It's my birthday," she admitted, blushing a little. Lucas's eyes widened. "Really? Happy birthday?" Ethan smiled, watching the small exchange. He could see how much that simple happy birthday meant to her. Her eyes brightened and her shoulders relaxed. "Do you live nearby?" Ethan asked. She pointed down the street. "Just there, in that brown building." "Then let's make sure you get home safely," he said. He and Lucas walked beside her as she wheeled forward, chatting lightly. Lucas told her about his school and how he once tried to make a cake out of pancakes. Maya giggled, a soft musical laugh that made Ethan smile. When they reached her building, Ethan noticed the cracked walls and faded paint. He realized she probably didn't have many people looking out for her. He wanted to ask if she needed anything, but he didn't want to embarrass her. "You okay getting inside?" he asked gently. She nodded. "Yes. Thank you for helping me." Lucas waved. "Bye, Maya. I hope your cupcake tastes amazing." She grinned and waved back before rolling into the building. Ethan watched her disappear through the door, feeling something stir in his heart. As they walked back to the truck, Lucas looked up at his dad. "She only had a cupcake for her birthday," he said quietly. "That's kind of sad." Ethan nodded slowly. Yeah, buddy. It is. They got into the truck, and for a while neither of them spoke. The rain had stopped, but the gray sky still hung low. Ethan started the engine, but instead of driving off, he sat there for a moment, lost in thought. Lucas finally broke the silence. Dad? Yeah? Can we do something for her? Ethan turned to look at his son. Like what? Lucas shrugged. I don't know, maybe. We could make her a cake or bring her balloons. It's her birthday and she shouldn't be alone. Ethan's chest tightened. He reached out and ruffled Lucas's hair. You've got a big heart? You know that? Lucas smiled proudly. I learned from you. Ethan looked out the window at the street where Maya had disappeared. All right then, he said softly. Tomorrow we'll give her a real birthday. Lucas clapped his hands excitedly. Really? Can we make cupcakes? I'll decorate them. Ethan laughed, the sound light and genuine for the first time in weeks. Yeah, we'll do that. And maybe we can find something nice for her, something that'll make her smile. As they drove home, the world outside didn't seem so gray anymore. The rain had stopped completely, and a soft glow appeared on the horizon. Ethan glanced at his son and smiled to himself. He didn't know it yet, but helping that little girl would end up changing their lives more than he could imagine. The next morning, Maya woke up feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. Yesterday had been a strange day, a day she hadn't expected to be noticed by anyone outside her small world. Her birthday had started quietly, just her and 3 crumpled dollars, but now she felt a little spark of hope inside her. She got out of bed, carefully swinging herself into her wheelchair, and rolled to the window. The street was quiet, the sun peeking through thin clouds, casting soft light across the pavement. She hoped today would be just a little bit better than yesterday. Meanwhile, across town, Ethan and Lucas were preparing for their mission. Ethan had woken up early, cleaning his small kitchen while Lucas carefully decorated cupcakes. Flour was scattered on the counter and frosting smeared on Lucas's cheeks, but both of them were smiling. These have to be perfect, Lucas said seriously, because it's her birthday. Ethan chuckled, nodding. They'll be perfect because we made them with love. They packed the cupcakes into a small box, along with a few colorful balloons they had bought from the corner store. Lucas insisted on bringing one of his favorite stuffed toys, too. A small bear with a patched-up ear. After a quick breakfast, they set off in the truck. Ethan drove slowly, glancing out at the streets as he passed familiar shops and homes. He remembered the little girl from yesterday, the way her eyes had brightened when Lucas had wished her a happy birthday. Something tugged at his heart, he couldn't ignore it. Lucas kept asking questions. Do you think she'd like the cupcakes? Do you think she's okay today? Ethan smiled at his son's concern. We're about to find out. When they reached her block, they saw her again, wheeling herself down the sidewalk with quiet determination. The small puddles from last night had dried, but uneven cracks in the pavement still made it tricky to navigate. Lucas waved immediately, and Maya's eyes widened in surprise. She wasn't expecting anyone to come for her birthday. She stopped, unsure of what to say. Hi, Maya. Lucas called cheerfully. Happy birthday. Ethan stepped forward and smiled gently. We brought something for you, he said, holding the box of cupcakes and the balloons. Maya's hands shook slightly. You did this for me? She asked softly. Her voice was a mixture of disbelief and joy. She had never had a birthday like this before and ever had someone come out of nowhere just to celebrate her. Ethan nodded. We thought you deserved a real birthday. You shouldn't have to celebrate alone. Lucas held out the stuffed bear. And this is for you too. Maya's lips trembled as she took the bear and the cupcakes. She didn't know what to say at first. She only managed to whisper, Thank you. Thank you so much. Ethan helped her wheel her chair into a small corner of the sidewalk where they could set down the box and balloons. Lucas carefully untied the balloons, letting them float gently in the breeze. Maya's eyes sparkled with excitement. For the first time in years, she felt truly noticed, truly cared for. They sang happy birthday quietly. Maya's voice joined in softly, almost laughing at the silliness of the moment. She took a bite of the cupcake and closed her eyes, savoring the sweetness. The chocolate melted slowly in her mouth, and for a moment, the apartment, The loneliness, struggles, all of it seemed to disappear. She felt light, as if a small weight had been lifted from her chest. After a while, Ethan and Lucas helped Maya back to her building. The journey was slow, careful, but filled with conversation. Ethan asked her about school and what she liked to draw. Maya hesitated at first, then opened up. She told him about the butterflies she loved to paint and the small sketches she kept hidden under her bed. Lucas listened with wide eyes, fascinated. "You're really talented," he exclaimed. Maya smiled shyly. "I used to paint all the time before my accident." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "You can still paint, Maya. We can even hang some of your pictures in my shop if you want. People will love them." Maya's eyes widened, and for the first time, she considered that maybe her talents mattered, that someone might actually care about them. As they reached the apartment, Maya paused, looking at the door. Her mother, Lydia, was still at work, and the apartment felt emptier than usual. Ethan glanced at her and said softly, "Don't worry. You're not alone anymore. We'll visit again." Maya's chest swelled with gratitude. I didn't think anyone would care," she whispered. Lucas grinned. "Well, we do. Right, Dad?" Ethan smiled. "Absolutely." The rest of the afternoon was spent in laughter and small talks. Ethan and Lucas helped Maya organize her tiny apartment, moving a few drawings to the wall so they could be seen properly. Lucas even suggested they play a game, rolling a ball gently across the floor to Maya. She laughed, a clear sound that filled the room with warmth. When it was time to leave, Maya wheeled herself to the door, clutching the cupcakes and bear. She didn't want the moment to end. Ethan knelt beside her, his voice calm and comforting. "Remember, Maya, birthdays are special, but so is every day. And we'll make sure you know that from now on." She nodded, tears threatening to spill. I hope I can see you again soon." "You will," Ethan promised. "We'll be back." After they left, Maya sat by the window, watching their truck disappear down the street. She felt a strange mixture of happiness and disbelief. It was almost too good to be true. She touched the stuffed bear and whispered, "Thank you for remembering me." That evening, Lydia returned from work, exhausted but relieved to see her daughter smiling. "What happened today?" she asked, noticing the cupcakes and balloons. Maya beamed. "Some people came for my birthday. They brought cupcakes, balloons, and even a teddy bear." "I wasn't alone today, Mom." Lydia's eyes filled with tears. She had been working so hard, barely able to make ends meet, that she hadn't realized how lonely her daughter had been. She hugged Maya tightly. "I'm so glad someone cared," she whispered. The night passed peacefully. Maya slept with the bear clutched tightly to her chest, the cupcakes eaten and enjoyed, and a small feeling of hope lingering in her heart. She felt lighter, happier, and most importantly, she felt noticed. Ethan and Lucas drove home that evening, tired but smiling. They had started the day not knowing how much of a difference they could make, but now they felt a deep sense of satisfaction. A simple act of kindness, staking cupcakes and balloons to a girl they didn't know, had changed her entire day, maybe even her entire outlook on life. Lucas leaned against his father's shoulder. "Dad, she really liked it, didn't she?" Ethan smiled, watching the streetlights pass. "Yes, buddy, she did. And that's just the beginning." The quiet drive home was filled with thoughts of what else they could do for Maya, ways to help her feel loved and cared for. Ethan knew one thing for sure: helping her today had awakened something inside both of them. It was more than just cupcakes and balloons. It was about showing her that even small acts of kindness could make life brighter. Maya, meanwhile, rolled back to her bed that night, hugging the bear tightly. She thought about the strange kindness of strangers, how they had noticed her and cared enough to come all this way. She closed her eyes, a small smile on her lips, and whispered a quiet wish. "I hope every birthday from now on can be this happy." For the first time in a long time, she believed that someone out there truly cared about her, not just her survival, but her happiness. And that small spark of hope would grow, lighting the way for what was to come next. Months had passed since Ethan and Lucas first visited Maya on her birthday. The little girl who had once celebrated with only $3 crumpled now had her world slowly changing. Her apartment, once quiet and lonely, was filled with laughter, colors from her paintings, and small reminders of the kindness that had entered her life. Every visit from Ethan and Lucas became something she looked forward to. It's like sunshine on a rainy day. One afternoon, Ethan had an idea. He wanted to do something bigger for Maya, something that could truly change her life in a way that went beyond cupcakes and gifts. She had grown so much emotionally in the past months, but there was still a struggle she faced every day. Her wheelchair was old and worn, difficult to maneuver, and sometimes even unsafe. Ethan decided he would start a small fundraiser online to help Maya get a new custom motorized wheelchair, one that would allow her more independence and freedom. He spoke to Lucas about it quietly one evening. "Lucas, we're going to help Maya in a bigger way. She needs a wheelchair that's easier for her to use. We can start a fundraiser online. People will help when they hear her story." Lucas's eyes lit up. "Really? Can we do it now?" Ethan nodded. "Yes, we'll set it up. But first, we need to make sure it's all done right so people understand how much this can change her life." The next day, Ethan carefully wrote about Maya's story online, explaining how a little girl had only $3 for her birthday and how a small act of kindness had brought hope back into her life. He included photos of her art, her bright smile, and the cupcakes they had shared. He shared the fundraiser with friends, neighbors, and local community groups. Slowly, the story spread. People were moved by Maya's courage and the kindness of Ethan and Lucas. Donations began to come in. Small amounts at first, and then larger contributions from people who had read about her. Meanwhile, Maya continued her daily routine, unaware of the surprise that was being prepared. She painted her butterflies, laughed with Lucas when he came to visit, and shared small moments with Ethan and her mother. Her heart was full, but she had no idea that soon her life was about to change in an unbelievable way. The day of her next birthday arrived, and Ethan and Lucas were ready. They carried the familiar cupcakes and balloons just like before, but there was also something bigger waiting. When they reached her building, Maya's eyes lit up at the sight of them. "You came again?" she exclaimed, rolling her wheelchair forward. "Of course," Lucas said, handing her a balloon. "We wouldn't miss it." Ethan smiled, but motioned for her to wait at the doorway. Moments later, a delivery truck pulled up outside. Maya and her mother, Lydia, stepped onto the small balcony to see what was happening. Ethan knelt beside Maya, keeping his tone gentle. "Maya, today is more than just cupcakes and balloons. We've got a surprise for you." The delivery men brought out a large box, and Ethan helped them carry it inside. When the box was opened, Maya's mouth fell open. Inside was a brand new motorized wheelchair, bright blue. With her name engraved on the armrest and soft cushions made for comfort, her hands trembled as she ran her fingers over it. It's mine," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Yes," Ethan said softly. "You don't have to wish for next year anymore. This is for you, so you can move around easily and safely, and have more freedom every day." Tears streamed down Maya's face as she looked at her mother. "Mom, look! It's real." Lydia hugged her tightly, crying. "I can't believe this." "Thank you, Ethan. Thank you so much." Lucas stood beside them, grinning. "See? I told you it would be amazing." Maya's excitement was endless. She sat in the new wheelchair, adjusting the controls, and moved around the apartment for the first time with ease. She rolled to her paintings, smiled at her stuffed bear, even looked out the window, feeling the freedom she had never had before. Her laughter echoed through the apartment, sound full of joy and wonder. Ethan watched quietly, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. What had started as a small act of kindness helping her with her stuck wheelchair, sharing cupcakes, had grown into something that truly transformed her life. Lucas cheered as Maya maneuvered herself with confidence, showing off how easily she could glide from one corner of the room to the other over the next few days. The wheelchair became more than just a tool-it, became a symbol of hope and independence for Maya. She could now move without relying on help as much, go to the kitchen to bake small treats, reach her art supplies, and even roll outside into the small courtyard when the weather was nice. Every day felt like a new opportunity, a chance to explore more of her world than she had ever been able to before. Ethan and Lucas continued to visit, proud to see Maya thriving. They didn't need to bring cupcakes every time now because the joy in her eyes was gift enough. Lucas loved to see Maya paint freely, and Ethan enjoyed sharing small moments with Lydia, who now seemed lighter, happier, and less burdened. One evening, as Maya was practicing moving around her apartment in her new wheelchair, she stopped and looked at Ethan and Lucas. "I can't believe you did this for me," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "I never thought something like this could happen." Ethan knelt beside her, smiling gently. "Maya, you deserve it. You've been brave, and you've inspired us too. This is just the beginning. There are people who care about you, and we're all here to help you." Lydia hugged Ethan again, whispering, "You didn't just change your life. You changed ours too." Maya rolled to the window the next morning, her new wheelchair giving her a sense of independence she had never known. She could see her neighbors playing outside, and for the first time in years, she imagined herself joining them, laughing, moving freely, feeling the wind on her face. The world suddenly felt larger and brighter. Her birthday that year became a story to remember, not because of money or presents, but because of the love and kindness that had poured into her life. The single dad and his son had taken a small act of compassion and turned it into something unbelievable. A gift that would impact Maya forever. And in that small apartment, filled with sunlight and the scent of flowers and paint, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Hope for birthdays to come. Hope for days that weren't lonely. Hope that life could be beautiful, even when it was hard. She whispered to her stuffed bear, "This is the best birthday ever." Ethan watched from the doorway, Lucas by his side, both smiling quietly. What had started as a simple gesture of kindness had blossomed into a miracle for a little girl, who deserved so much more than $3 and a lonely cupcake. It was a reminder to them all that even small actions, when done with love, could become truly life-changing. From that day on, Maya's life was never the same. She painted, laughed, and dreamed with newfound freedom. Her friends in Ethan and Lucas reminded her every day that she was loved, she was seen, and that kindness could turn the impossible into something real. And every time she looked at her new wheelchair, she remembered that hope and happiness could arrive in the most unexpected and wonderful ways. Days passed after Maya's birthday, but the memory of that morning stayed with her. She kept the small stuffed bear Lucas had given her on the bed next to Sunny, her little orange fish. Every time she looked at it, she remembered the gentle smile of Ethan, the cheerful voice of Lucas, and the cupcakes that had tasted so sweet not just for their sugar, but because someone had thought of her. It made her feel special in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. Ethan and Lucas didn't forget her either. A few days after their first visit, they returned to Maya's apartment, carrying more cupcakes and small gifts. This time, Lucas had colored a card himself, filled with funny drawings of turtles, cakes, and little birthday hats. Maya's eyes lit up when she saw him hand it over. "You really remembered me," she whispered, holding the card like it was treasure. Over the next few weeks, Ethan and Lucas made it a routine to visit Maya. They didn't just bring treats. They brought their time, their laughter, and their care. Ethan helped her with tasks that were hard for her alone, like reaching books from high shelves or fixing small things in her apartment. Lucas played games with her, rolled a ball gently across the floor, or helped her paint. Slowly, Maya's apartment began to feel less lonely. She even started to leave some of her artwork out for Ethan and Lucas to see one afternoon. When Lydia came home from work, she was surprised to find the small group laughing together in the apartment. Ethan was carefully adjusting the strap of Maya's wheelchair. Lucas was decorating a drawing with glitter, and Maya was smiling freely, showing a painting of butterflies she had done. Lydia paused at the door, tears forming in her eyes. She hadn't seen her daughter laugh so openly in months. "Mom," Maya said, seeing her mother, "these are my friends. They came to see me after my birthday." Lydia looked at Ethan, who nodded politely. "I just wanted to make sure she had a good birthday," he said softly. "And now, I guess a few more happy days after that?" Lydia wiped her eyes. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "I've been so busy trying to make ends meet, I didn't even notice how lonely Maya was." Ethan shook his head. "No thanks needed. I'm just glad she's smiling." The bond between the three of them grew naturally. Ethan and Lucas would come by on weekends, sometimes helping Lydia with small chores, sometimes just sitting and talking with Maya while she painted. Lucas loved showing Maya his drawings and little projects, and she loved learning from him, feeling like she had a real friend her own age one day. Maya asked Ethan quietly, "Do you think I could sell my paintings someday?" Ethan looked at her seriously. "Of course. You have talent. People would love them. We can even put some of them in my shop for a start." Maya's eyes widened. "Really? You think people would like them?" "I know they will," Ethan said with a reassuring smile. "And I'll help you get them there." It was the first time Maya had felt that her skills mattered, that she could do something meaningful. She had spent months feeling trapped inside her small apartment, invisible to the world. But now, with Ethan and Lucas's encouragement, she felt a new sense of confidence. The weeks turned into months. Lydia noticed a change in her daughter. Maya was more confident, more joyful. She laughed often, spoke freely, and even began to participate more in online classes for school. Lydia herself felt a lightness she hadn't felt in a long time. Seeing Maya happy made the long shifts at the diner more bearable. She began baking small treats for Ethan and Lucas when they came by, leaving them at the door with a note. For the friends who made Maya smile, she wrote one Saturday. Ethan brought a small basket of flowers, just picked from a neighbor's yard. Lucas helped him arrange them in a vase that Maya had chosen. She smiled brightly, placing them on the table near her bed. "It feels like spring in here," she said softly, as days went on. Ethan and Lucas continued to bring little surprises, sometimes books, sometimes snacks, sometimes just their company. And slowly, the loneliness that had weighed heavily on Maya's shoulders began to lift. She no longer felt like she was living in a world that had forgotten her. She had people who cared, people who had come into her life not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Maya's mother, Lydia, also started to change. She saw that she didn't have to carry the weight of everything alone. Ethan's presence didn't replace her, but it reminded her that there were people who cared. She began to let herself rest a little more, to laugh a little more. One evening, Ethan suggested a small idea to Maya. "Why don't we try making a few of your paintings into cards? We could sell them at the shop, and maybe people will see your work and love it as much as we do." Maya's eyes sparkled. "Do you really think people would want them?" "I do," Ethan said firmly. "And we'll start with just a few. No rush." The next week, Ethan carefully set up a small display in his shop. Lucas helped by drawing little signs with bright markers, Maya's art. Hand-painted by a brave girl, passersby stopped to look. People smiled at the bright colors and delicate butterflies. Some even bought a card asking Ethan who had made it. Ethan proudly told them about Maya. When Maya found out, she couldn't believe it. She felt proud for the first time in months. People like my art?" she asked, almost whispering. "Yes," Ethan said, "and they will. You just need to keep creating." Maya began painting more, inspired by the encouragement and the love surrounding her. She painted landscapes, animals, flowers, and butterflies. Every painting was full of hope, bright colors, and tiny details she used to keep hidden. Ethan and Lucas were always there to admire her work. And Lydia started helping too, baking cookies while Maya painted. One rainy afternoon, Maya paused, looking out the window. "I used to think birthdays were just about presents," she said quietly. "But now I see. It's about being remembered, about being seen and cared for." Ethan nodded. "Exactly. And you're never alone anymore, Maya. You have people who care about you." Lucas jumped in, "And will always come for birthdays, and all the days in between." Maya laughed, a clear, happy sound that filled the apartment. The rain outside no longer seemed gloomy. It felt fresh and alive. She looked around at her little home, her paintings, the small gifts, the stuffed bear, and the flowers. Everything felt warmer, brighter, and full of life. Ethan realized too that helping Maya had changed him. It reminded him that even small acts of kindness could grow into something big. He had been focused on his struggles and the loss of his wife. But seeing Maya bloom, seeing the hope return to her life, made him understand that giving didn't just helped him and Lucas as well. By the end of that month, Maya's life had transformed. She was still paralyzed, still living in a small apartment with limited means, but her heart felt lighter. She painted, laughed, and dreamed again. Ethan and Lucas had become part of her world, bringing joy, friendship, and the belief that life could still hold good surprises. Lydia looked at her daughter one evening, watching her carefully paint a butterfly, and felt a tear slip down her cheek. "Thank you," she whispered to Ethan, who was helping Lucas with a small craft in the corner. "You didn't just help Maya. You helped me too." Ethan smiled gently, shrugging. "I didn't do much. She just needed someone to see her. That's all." But they all knew it was more than that. It wasn't just the cupcakes, the balloons, or the gifts. It was the care, the attention, and the love that had returned to Maya's life. And that was priceless. Maya hugged her bear tightly that night, thinking about the friends who had made her feel special. She whispered into the quiet apartment, "I will never forget this. I will always remember that someone cared." And in her heart, she knew that life, even with its challenges, had become brighter, warmer, filled with hope all because of the kindness of a single dad and his son who had chosen to make her world a little better.